Hi, welcome. I'm John Allen, host of Out in New Haven, where once a month we take a different topic of interest to the LGBTQ plus community and explore it in depth. And today we're going to be talking about something that has become very near and dear to my heart, and that is LGBTQ philanthropy. But before we do, a little housekeeping. I'd like to just mention that the New Haven Pride Center, and this is a program of the New Haven Pride Center, is at 84 Orange Street in downtown New Haven. And over the last couple of years, the center has been experiencing explosive growth, where there's several staff now, there's organizations and meetings happening all during the week. And the New Haven Pride Center hosts a couple of very important events and materials that I think the community should know about, and that is there's a bi-monthly magazine called Centerline, and that is available at restaurants and clubs around the region. And also it's host to the Dorothy Awards, where this is the largest awards ceremony in the state for LGBTQ plus leaders. And that's held in March of every year. And the center also hosts the New Haven Pride celebration, which occurs in September in downtown New Haven and on the Green. So today we're going to be talking about philanthropy. And this has actually come up in my own life because as we age, we start to think about what are we going to do with our estate. And we all have an estate, whether it's small or large. I hope that my estate will be very large at some point, but right now, I think this is something that we want to think about. And so I'm delighted to have with us members of the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, the lead agency for philanthropy in our region. And we have Dottie Weston Murphy, the Vice President. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And Joe Gordon, who's a 3-year board member. And thank you for being here.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for doing this.
Yes, Well, I think philanthropy sort of has this almost something that you think only rich people can participate in. And yet I think that this is a myth that has been dispelled, certainly within my own awareness. And I wonder if you might be able to talk a little bit about what is philanthropy and what the Community Foundation is all about.
Sure. So philanthropy sounds like a very fancy word, but it really means love of mankind. And so that involves everyone that wants to have that value. And the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven is the community's charitable endowment. And by being the charitable endowment for the community, that's a 20-town region, and we are a grant maker. We work with individuals who care about Greater New Haven. We're place-based philanthropy, which is very important.
And what's that mean, place-based?
So we know the region that we live and work in, and so we're about local philanthropy. There's a lot of options that are beyond local, but we focus, and it's our responsibility to focus on the needs and opportunities in our Greater New Haven area and to showcase the good work that the nonprofits are doing in our area.
Is it specifically nonprofits?
Yes, yes. Primarily, it's nonprofits. We're a convener, and we are the stewards of more than 900 individual funds.
Wonderful.
And each fund has a specific purpose and a specific reason for being a discrete fund. And so we work with people like you, and while you're here, but also it's our responsibility when you're no longer here to steward those funds and honor the intent of why the fund was established.
That's so great. And Joe, you've been on the board now for 3 years. What got you involved?
Well, the board is a very complicated organism that has representation from the mayor of the city of New Haven, the Yale New Haven Hospital, and Yale University, and many other organizations. I happen to be the representative from Yale University to the board.
You still are, or you were?
I am.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things that drew me to it is exactly what you were talking about earlier, is you get to be a certain age and you start thinking about, as you say, your legacy. But what's really important to realize is that, you know, in some ways, you're doing this not just for yourself and for your own legacy, but because of this philanthropy, this love of the next generation. You want something to be in place, maybe to help out kids who are LGBTQ, or it could be any of a number of things. We have a fund for women and girls. We have a Progreso Latino fund. We have various projects that deal with immigration issues, with prisoner release issues, and so on. And I think what's great about it is that anyone who is investing his or her hard-earned money in the future is in some sense creating a family. Some of us have no children.
Right.
And you'd think, well, who cares then about where the money goes, because you don't have to. But the truth is, we all have children. And those are the people that, for example, you're a social worker. Those are your family. It's
Yes,
the family
they are.
that you chose, not the family you were born into necessarily. And everybody, I was a teacher, but anyone who works in philanthropy, any job you do really, you're thinking of another generation. You don't necessarily have to be thinking about the generation that's younger than you, because sometimes the people you're benefiting are elderly or older than you.
Right.
So it's just a wonderful thing, tying together the generations.
Yeah.
Very generous thing to do.
You know, I was thinking about, as I was thinking about philanthropy, I was realizing, yeah, you know, it really is about that New Haven and this state is my home. And this is and my neighbors are my family, and I care deeply about them. And we live in such a wonderful place. We have excellent quality of life. We have a political structure that values everyone. You know, I'd like to think sometimes I'd like to see a little bit, you know, a little more equity.
Right.
But in general, I think that we are, I feel a part of the process as a LGBT person. But I want to see it get even better, and I want to see us continue to be the model for the world. And we do impact the world. What goes on here in Connecticut, New Haven and Connecticut, impacts the world. And certainly in LGBTQ issues.
Sure, and we're the model for some programs that are replicated throughout the country, right?
Right. Oh, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So the foundation is 91 years old. And of course, the people who were giving money back then and the people who were on the receiving end of the money are very different. There was a different population in New Haven, and of course, our values, our identities have been shaped by history. So we are trying in everything we do today to be inclusive, to try to be as equitable as possible, and to search for diversity and celebrate it. On any aspect of any scale, whether it be sexuality or gender, or you know, when people's medical situations or their socioeconomic situations, their learning challenges.
Right.
Everything, we want to invest in them.
Yes.
And the other wonderful benefit about a community foundation is we change with the times. And so we like to tell the story of one of our funds, the Carolyn Silverthau Fund, that was established to benefit people by coal and milk, and now we don't heat by coal, and we don't have milk deliveries, but we have heating assistance and food and basic needs. And so some of the funds, as they were established many years ago, they will change and be modified to the current situation. So
But keeping in the same philosophy.
in the same philosophy, honoring donor intent is something that's very, very important to us.
And that's something that I was impressed with when we first spoke about making sure that the organization, the foundation, does honor the wishes of those that have contributed the funds.
Yes, definitely.
We have a wonderful origin story, as it were, because not very many foundations can claim that the person who made the founding gift was a woman. And her name was Nettie Dayton, and she lived on Dwight Street in New Haven. And she left the very first gift to the what became the Community Foundation. And so that's a way in which we had a kind of pioneering women throughout the history of Connecticut, and issues like reproductive rights and even the vote for women.
Right. She didn't have the right to vote, and here she was doing this for
and absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I think that as people see the the deficiencies that they have to exist in, you want to make life better, ameliorate that situation. I mean, it's certainly that way for me as a queer person. I want to see Connecticut become even more equitable for LGBTQ people.
That's right.
And
it's a worrisome time in the national front, certainly with the Supreme Court as it is. But we're pretty confident about the politics, at least, of the state.
Right. Yes.
And the city.
Yeah, no, our elected officials have been absolutely wonderful on our issues. We're very proud of that. And have out people, in the legislature and serving in key positions in government. So
Absolutely.
that's very important as well.
Yes, we're very fortunate to be in the state that we are.
We find that that's, again, a part of our way of doing business, as it were, is that we're looking to support not just diversity of people who would be the recipients of these grants, but actually the people who would be our donors and the people who would run the foundations that we partner with.
Right. Well, I think as we talk about wanting to talk more about how to get LGBTQ people involved in this process. And that was something that I think, I like to think of myself as, just a layperson out in the, living in the community. I never really understood that this was something that was open to my husband and me. And yet, you don't have to have tremendous wealth in order to start a fund, to think about the future. And certainly LGBTQ people, typically, I think, we make the same kind of money that other people are making in the professions, but we don't tend to have, as a group of people, we don't tend to have children, which consume lots of our disposable income. And so we get to a point in our life as well, what are we going to do with these funds? And, I think that most, certainly the baby boomer generation, have they really thought about what's going to happen with their estate when they no longer are using those funds? Or maybe even right now, like my husband and I, we've reached a point in our life where, we've paid off our mortgage and
congratulations.
Yes.
And life is pretty good. We have a little more disposable income, and we want to start thinking about what are we going to do with that when we no longer are using it. We don't want it just to go, just sort of be consumed somewhere without some kind of a stated purpose. And so I think that LGBTQ people can be reminded that this is an avenue for them.
Well, maybe Dottie could talk a bit about the ways in which you can gradually build up a gift. You don't have to have a huge amount of money on hand to start it. And I might go back and talk afterwards about, again, what specific charities might be of interest to LGBTQ people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So most of our donors are comfortable, like you said, John, but they're not necessarily wealthy. But they've done well, they've worked hard, and they want to give back in some form. So it's a real honor for the staff, for people like me, to work with people while we get to know our donors while they're living and here, and all three of us actually have a Build-A-Fund, a donor-advised fund, which you can build over a certain period of time. Permanent funds at the Community Foundation are $10,000 and more. We have funds $10,000 to $6 million and everything in between. But what's really nice is you can have a named fund. We have, and it could be a family name, it could be individuals. Some people want to be anonymous and they have only the name of a fund that only has meaning to them. And so you can actively build the fund over a few years and then start making grant recommendations to things that are important to you. And the nice thing about a community foundation is we are about community. We are a general grant maker. We don't have one particular cause. The particular area is local, but the causes can range from basic needs to the arts, to education, to the environment, to health, and
now to
everything in
LGBTQ.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Because as you mentioned the Pride Center when you started the conversation, and over the years, the Community Foundation has provided grants, and I looked back and to about $51,000 over the course of.
Oh, how wonderful! I didn't know how much it was, but I know it was the
Yes.
very first community check that we received was from the Community Foundation, and it came out of the little love fund, slush fund from the director who gave us our first $2,500 check. And let me tell you, it was
Made
like
a difference.
The gift
It
from
made a
heaven.
difference, even though it was a
It was
rather modest
huge.
amount. But at
and
the
not
time,
only that, but to be able to say that yes, we've received funds from the Community Foundation, a lead organization in the community,
That's
and it just
wonderful.
helps to, it's the little seed, and it helps to, plants the seed, and it gives you cachet with other organizations and individuals around the
Leverages
region.
other funding.
Yes, and that's so important.
So I wanted to go back to talking about where one might give to what organizations. And of course, there are the national organizations, the Human Rights Campaign, Lambda Legal, GLSEN, and so on. GLAAD, you know, thank God there are many of them.
Yes.
But the focus, as Dottie's been saying, of the Community Foundation is on gifts that are going towards establishing endowment and that are affecting the local community, the 20 towns that we cover. One of the things that giving a gift to the Community Foundation and designating it for those purposes is that we don't actually know in the future what new organizations will arise and need help. We can be an incubator, or as they say on the West Coast, an accelerator for those kinds of things. And it would be very, very welcome for people who feel as you do and as my husband and I feel, that this has been a great place for us to live.
Yes.
There's a lot of inequality in greater New Haven. There are still people who are really in dire and desperate need for basic services.
Right.
But there's a feeling in this community that that's wrong, and we should try to do what we can to make that better.
Right.
And I like to identify with that and support that. We will find, I think, in the next generation, more and more as people who identify as lesbian and gay and bisexual, other things, more and more those people come to the stage in life that they want to think about, as you said, their legacy, their give back to this community.
Right, because it's been so generous to me. I'm a product of such generosity in Greater New Haven. It's where my career has, developed, where I met my husband, where we've set up a life, and I want to continue to keep making it a great place,
We all enjoy the arts in
Yes.
so
We're
many
very
forms.
fortunate,
Right, it
Yeah,
is.
I mean, I don't know if people know this, but the Community Foundation is located in downtown New Haven. It's on Audubon Street. We're just above the New Haven Ballet School,
Right.
and right in the midst of all the arts.
Really immersed in the city.
Neighborhood music school.
Both
all
literally
the
and
things.
figuratively.
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good time to really talk about, what are some, I like the statistics of, where we are, and, and doing some research for the show today, that what I had discovered was that in Connecticut, there was the Connecticut received, organizations and individuals received $5 billion in grant money from, or not only from within the state, but outside of the state. I think that's huge. I mean, we have a budget of what, $10 billion, and $5 billion is coming into this state.
It's amazing.
That is
It's an amazing amount of money.
People are very, very, very generous,
Yeah.
and they want to make a difference. They want to leave their mark, and so I think that's what you're seeing when you have numbers like that.
Right.
And one way to deal with a perceived need is to go right in there and engage with it.
Right.
And that's where the money comes from. And that's the spirit of community that makes that happen.
Right. Now, in looking at how much money is coming from LGBT organizations or focus, that I couldn't really. I think we're still developing the history of that.
The data.
But what I was able to find in the philanthropic closet was a report, was that over the last 50 years, this was done for the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, which is the founding of the modern LGBTQ movement,
Right.
that there was over $2 billion in LGBT funding. And most of that, it started with $20,000 in 1970,
Amazing.
and it's moved up to now where it's about $200 million was the last year that it was. But so over that 50-year time span, it was $2 billion.
Wow, that's amazing.
But then the other thing that I think that was where part of where my focus has been in trying to make LGBTQ issues a priority within the philanthropic community in New Haven and Connecticut is that there was a number that said that only 28 cents of every $100
Okay.
of philanthropic money that's given out in grants is going to LGBTQ issues.
Yeah.
28 cents of $100, which really says that there's a lot of room for growth.
we have a long way to
Yes, we do.
go. Right?
Well, it also could be an indicator that LGBTQ people are giving money to other organizations and causes because that's part of their identity too. No one is LGBTQ only. They may have intersections of identities. They might also be a person of color. They might be a person with disabilities. They might be a person who's very concerned about the environment.
Right.
And
Multiple
so
interests.
Multiple interests, multiple identities.
Well, you know, in our remaining moments, I really wanted to know what got you, if you could say in just a brief moment, what got you involved in working in this field and being a philanthropist yourself?
Wow. Do you want
Put
to
you on
start?
the spot.
Well,
What started
in
you?
my case,
and
it's
you got
easier.
about 30 seconds.
It was, I think, I think it was the AIDS crisis, particularly the AIDS crisis here in New Haven.
Yes.
And when one saw lives being snuffed out early by ignorance, but as well as obviously real difficult medical problems that were not solvable at that time, I thought, you know, we have to invest in that.
Yes, and that's very good, and it's true. And that's where a lot of the money came from initially, was because of the AIDS and HIV.
Yeah.
And individuals and foundations were the early
Absolutely.
adopters. Government took
Right.
over because it was
That's
such a big issue, but
Right.
foundations can be the early adopter
Yes.
and take risks that government can't take, and then they take it over.
Right. And what got you, Dottie?
So I just always loved local community. I guess it's my sense of values that I had growing up, and I feel really blessed to be able to work in this space and to work with both individuals that want to make a difference and leave the world a better place, and also the nonprofits that are so mission driven in the work that they do and really change the fabric of our community.
Yeah, these communities are full of people working at nonprofits
Yeah.
for
Yes.
often lower salaries and benefits out of the goodness of their heart and
Right.
the strength of their belief.
Well, this has been so fun. I
it's
really
great to see you.
appreciate
Thank
this.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We've been talking with the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, Dottie Weston Murphy, and Joe Gordon. And thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
And check out their materials and their website. And hopefully we'll see a much greater presence of LGBTQ philanthropy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm John Allen, host of Out in New Haven. And until next time, thank you.